Well, out of everything I've ever done on this page, this is probably not one of the more intelligent things. There's something alluring, something interesting about a Kawasaki H2 being where a Kawasaki H2 does not belong. I'm slipping on snow. This thing looks beautiful. And now, without further ado, I don't even know if this thing's going to start because I have not charged the battery on this thing. Oh, what a stupid, stupid decision. Okay, it runs. It does not like it, I don't think. We just introduced a lot of moisture to this bike. This was not a well thought through idea. To be fair, when I set this up, it wasn't snowing, and now it is snowing. So,
well, I really hope I'm not the only one that can appreciate a good snow bike. There we go. Much better. Depending on any long-standing opinions or objections you might have, today's announcement might come as a little bit of a surprise. I like to think I've talked pretty extensively about the H2. It's a little bit of an unwieldy machine, as I've kind of come to find out after riding this thing for a little bit. I've put 4,489 miles on this H2 since last June. I told the story before. When I was out in California visiting my friend CJ, I was offered to purchase this Kawasaki H2. It was a $3,000 non-refundable deposit. I had to put it down while I was out in California, and I was basically given a decision because this bike was gonna sell quickly if I didn't move on it very fast. And back then, I was basically forced to make the decision if I wanted to move out to California, live out my dream of pursuing the nice sunny 70 degrees all year round, or live where it snows and rains and is miserable, but I have family and friends here. Thinking very rationally and hard and long about this decision, I ended up placing the deposit on the H2. Indirectly, basically keeping me in Ohio to where I remain today. And ever since then, I've owned this Kawasaki H2, and it's been kind of a member sitting in my garage here for quite a while. And to be honest with you, it hasn't really been doing much. So maybe it might come as a surprise, or maybe it won't, depending on, if you've been watching my videos or not. But I am now, as of today, made the decision. Not an easy decision, not an incredibly rash decision, based off of like social media search figures and like how popular this bike is. But I'm making the decision to publicly announce I am selling my 2024 Kawasaki Ninja H2. Yes, I know, tragic decision. It struck the page. And let me be clear, it's not for financial reason. It's not for any crazy, like, I'm going broke, I'm not buying a house or anything like that. It's not for money reasons. I really could care less. Mainly comes down to, there's a few reasons. One, the most obvious, is space in my garage. Physically lacking space in my garage. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 big motorcycles, and I have a 7th in my house right now. If you guys were worried that the Grom was going anywhere, don't worry, it's not. I never, ever in a million years planned on owning this many motorcycles at one time, and maintaining and keeping up with the maintenance on every single one of these bikes, it's like having children. My V4 still is, these are still the stock tires that this bike came with. Maybe it's just because I'm in school right now, and maybe once I get out of school, it'll be a little bit easier to handle, but I physically cannot keep up with the maintenance needs of every single motorcycle that I own. It's a lot easier to take care of like 2 or 3 motorcycles rather than 7, as you can imagine. And some people will argue, and that's like the #1 thing I hear from people that I know is, why do you own so many motorcycles? I think they're all unique and they ride different, okay? Like if I had the decision, if it was up to me, I would just own and keep every motorcycle I've ever bought. That decision is unfortunately not up to me though. The second reason why I'm selling the H2 is it was my least ridden motorcycle this past summer. Every single other motorcycle in my garage got ridden more than this H2. Except for the Grom, but you can't really count the Grom. The Grom's its own, it costs 1/10 of what this motorcycle costs. Meanwhile, the insurance cost is more than every other motorcycle that I own. I guess gas and everything else cost is kind of the same. I don't know. The point is, it's an expensive motorcycle to have around if I rode it more than what I do. And lastly, the third reason and the final reason, and to be honest with you, the most important reason why I want to sell the H2 and why I've made the decision to do this, I want to get away from 1000s. Something that's becoming increasingly more important to me these past couple months is setting a good example. And one of those things that you could argue is by riding these 1000cc motorcycles safely and reasonably, you can set an example that yes, you can enjoy these machines at a reasonable pace. That's a valid criticism and something I kind of held myself to these past couple of months. But at a certain point, that becomes a little bit boring. And I think had I sold this bike after tragedy, I don't think, I wouldn't have been able to make that point. But I think up until this point, now I have. I've made the point that you can buy a Kawasaki H2 and ride it reasonably. You don't have to buy this bike and ride it like a maniac. You don't have to buy these 1000cc race bikes and ride them like an absolute buffoon. But I think after a certain point, after that point has been made, there's a point in which that becomes redundant. I don't need to continuously show that this bike is capable of being reasonable over and over and over again. I think it makes that point if you just watch my old videos. I think the only thing that could possibly be worth like keeping this bike around is to keep it to do something that somebody else hasn't done with a Kawasaki H2 before. But But this is the problem that I ran into when I first purchased this bike way back in 2 years ago, is this bike has been out for going on 11 years now. This bike has been in production 6 years before I was like a rider. This bike has been along since this bike came out before I was even in high school. It's old. It's been out. It's still the most powerful production motorcycle I think you can buy right now, at least like pure horsepower numbers wise and like top speed wise. But everything that an H2 is capable of doing has been done. Before even Jixabra bought an H2, people were wheeling this thing. Like there's nothing that this bike is special at doing anymore, other than going really fast in a straight line and being one of those roll racing bikes that you have to put $100,000 into in order to make it capable of doing what it's supposed to do. For me, someone who's an adventurer, who wants to go out and ride as long and as far as possible, someone who's more interested in the human connection of riding, someone who wants to talk to people while riding, a loud 250 horsepower motorcycle that goes 200 miles an hour it doesn't get me closer to that goal.
I wish we could stick around and hang out for a little bit at my garage. I always love looking at the pretty little bikes here, but we have some other business to attend to this morning that we have to talk about. Yeah, we're taking the truck. I'm not taking any chances. When it's this cold out, there's nothing like a nice warm truck, but I tell you, I feel like we as motorcyclists are robbed of this type of scenery. There's still a bunch of leaves still on the branches, and so all that snow is really accumulating. It looks so pretty. And just like that, boys, welcome back to the Ducati Cleveland. So the reason I decided to come here is because Ducati has been announcing bikes left and right that to the point I can't even keep up with it at this point. Ducati, of course, announced the 450 MX earlier this year. They delivered these bikes, but now they're also talking about making street legal versions of their 450. So I'm really glad I didn't make the rational decision of buying one of these MX bikes and making it into a Supermoto, because Ducati's just going ahead and releasing basically a Supermoto version themselves. Ducati finally, like I mentioned earlier, is allowing cruise control to be added to the Panigale V4s with having the exhaust installed. Before, if you modify the exhaust at all, they would not allow you to add cruise control to the V4 for whatever reason. It was a really stupid decision, because that for a long time, that was the one thing that the BMW S1000RR had over the V4. The V4 is arguably a better riding experience, but the BMW has more rider amenities. If you get the premium package on the BMW, it comes with the heated grips and the cruise control. So I bet a lot of people were buying S1000s over V4s mainly because of that. But now, it seems like finally Ducati is waking up and realizing that people like things that make the bike easier to ride. Thank God, because that was, for a long time, that was my biggest gripe with the V4. I'm not shopping for a replacement for the H2. I told myself I wouldn't shop for a replacement today. But in terms of like what I'm trying to make my garage look like, this might, I keep coming back to this bike. These middleweight sport bikes are alluring, okay? They're all very different from each other, and that's why I'm intrigued. Speaking of dad bikes, we have this lineup of a multi-stratas. Now, these are bikes that could probably actually handle the snow much better than the H2. You know, we were having all that rear tire slip earlier. Now we have bikes that actually have tread that can grip the snow. Still probably highly dangerous, not recommended. But if we're talking bikes that can ride all year round, this is a model of bike that I've never even owned a motorcycle that looks like this. These sport touring motorcycles, they're so sick though. I just wish they weren't so expensive. These things are like 30, 40 grand. And then you're talking of upwards of 50 grand for the RS, which is basically one of these multi-stratas with a Panigale motor. Really cool bikes, just kind of out of range for me. I should also mention by making this video that there's no take backsies. By making this video, I know I've talked about it before and I've played with the idea of selling the H2. It's an official decision. As of today, the H2 will be sold no matter what. For me, the H2 is a dream bike, and so I'm making this decision knowing that I'm most likely not going to be able to buy another one in the condition that I currently own one ever again. Maybe in the very far distant future, but I'm making this decision basically with, like, I'm not going to buy another one. Like, this was it. This was the channel's Kawasaki H2. There's nothing left to do that I want to do with a Kawasaki H2 that already hasn't been done. That's kind of, it's a hard decision. It's one I've been playing with for a while on the page. You guys know, if you've been following me, you know I've been talking about this for a while. This is not an easy decision. But I think with the interest of where the direction that the page is currently going, I think it's one I have to make. It just sucks. It's a little sad. It's a little sad, but that's what it is. Well, boys, I can confidently say that riding the motorcycle to school today would not have been a good idea. Well, that was a super long day at school today. I told myself I wasn't going to shop for H2 replacements. That's not what this is about. One of the reasons I'm getting rid of the H2 is because I have too many bikes in my garage right now. I can't keep up with them all. But on this constant journey of trying to find the perfect motorcycle lineup, there's a few contenders that I'm thinking about for next year that, just hear me, I think you guys know what I'm going to be looking at if you guys have been paying attention to like social media. It's the 2026 KTM 990 RCR. This bike looks sick, dude, especially in orange. Now, I watched this review by Zach Kortz, who reviewed the 990 on track. And I'm not gonna lie, while I was watching this review, I was kind of like, ooh,
ooh, this bike may not be what I thought it was. To be fair, I've never ridden a 990 Duke, but listening to the engine tone, this isn't really a screamer. I guess you could have kind of figured that out by its lower rev limit, but it just kind of sounds like I'm getting a vibe that may kind of be a more boring bike than what I thought. When this thing was first announced, I thought it looked, oh my God, dude, this thing looks sick. It looks like a MotoGP bike. It low-key reminds me a lot of the R6, of my R6, the design. Maybe that's why I like it a lot. I've heard a lot of mixed opinions. Some people think it's really ugly. Some people think it's awesome. I think this bike is sick. I think this is a really cool bike. I think it looks beautiful. KTM has never designed a beautiful bike, in my opinion. This is a beautiful bike. I think it looks awesome. It's like the only bike that's ever looked good with winglets. I don't know why. And it's a perfect middleweight. This is exactly the type of bike that I've been talking about. It's 130 horsepower. It actually puts that very close in line with the 765 that I own, although this is a much more reasonable bike than the 765. It has cruise control. We're talking like a full suite of electronics, unlike the 765, which only has very basic traction control. Electronics, in my opinion, shouldn't be a selling point, but for many people it is. So also optional heated grips, all this stuff that kind of makes like a perfect daily driver sport bike that I've been kind of been looking for. The R9 was supposed to be that, and it didn't turn out to be exactly what I thought it was. I'm looking for excellence, not just good, which is kind of what Yamaha's been going for lately. So only thing is that price tag, oof, 13,900. But with selling the H2, I will have a little bit of cash to play with, so it is a potential option that we could shoot for. Now, another controversial bike, and this is why this is actually a big part of this video that I want to ask you guys about, is a Stark Vart Supermoto. I don't have any experience with e-bikes, unfortunately. I live in redneck Ohio, brother. Cleveland isn't really redneck, but you know what I mean. Like I live around a lot of people that like gasoline. They like engines that make sounds and emissions that smell really nice. I don't know, maybe I'm one of them. I have nothing against e-bikes personally. I think they're cool, but I don't have anybody in my area that rides e-bikes I would ride e-bikes with. I'm doing a lot of thinking over the winter. This is a time for reflection. And unfortunately, boys, it doesn't look like the cold weather is it's not going anywhere anytime soon. We're unfortunately all in this for the long haul, but let me know what you guys think. Between every bike that I talked about today, which one perks your interest? What gets you excited about motorcycles? Maybe it's something I haven't even mentioned in this video. And with all that being said, I think that I'm gonna end it here. It's only 8 p.m., but there's not really anything else to do with my day. All the bikes are winterized and just waiting for the next nice day to go out riding, which may come sooner than you think, because we're not staying in Ohio this winter. Graduation comes soon, guys. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.